In this video, I'm going to give you an overview of some of the top-level windows in Forge. In particular, I'm going to talk about the 2D view. Before I do that, let me call your attention to this window called the Forge status window. This window is a very important window in Flames, and it's one that you should have open all the time. And I have my single shooter scenario that I own loaded. It's a scenario that we loaded in an earlier video. I'm going to just make this window a little bit bigger and show you a few things in it. So the first thing that's listed here in the status window is a message that tells me I'm using the trial version. And in the trial version, most of Flame's options are enabled. The trial version is fully functional. It just has a limit on the number of units that you can create and a limit on the length of time that a scenario can execute. The trial version is only supposed to be used for evaluation purposes and for testing code that's developed with the Flames developer. If you want to actually use Flames for any real serious or any real scenario execution stuff, you're not just a developer building models, but you want to use it for something, then you need to have a paid version of the Flames engine. The next message that comes out in the status window every time you start Forge is it shows you which plugins were loaded. As you know already, you should know that Flames is a framework, and as such it doesn't have models of any particular type of system embedded in it. It is independent of that. So it gets all of the code for models that it's going to be using in a scenario, all of the real world system models, sensors and platforms, etc., from DLLs that are loaded dynamically when the application starts. And these DLLs will be defined by the particular settings of your project and which content you actually have loaded or installed in your project. So the project that I'm using is a project that has the tutorial content, and it includes these two DLLs right here. You can start Forge up with no DLLs, but if you do, it'll run just fine. You just won't be able to create any players for your scenario. The next thing it does is it shows me the data sets that got loaded when I loaded my particular scenario. So this is actually the same list of data sets that showed up in the scenario managed datasets window, which we looked at in another video. Forge has given us constant feedback on everything that we do as we edit. So it's really important to pay attention to the messages that are displayed in this window. This window, like almost every window in Forge, is dockable. I could put it in different places. I can, the docking features are very flexible in Flames. I can leave it float. I like to just leave it sitting down here at the bottom, and I just make it a little bit smaller. So again, pay attention to the messages there. And if you create a scenario that's got some bad data in it, it'll give you messages about that, and we'll talk about that in another video. Now let's move and talk about the 2D view. This window, or this portion of the overall Flames window, is open all the time. You can't close it. You can't dock it and move it around. It's the base window and the parent window for all other windows in Forge. This has a 2D display in it of your scenario. The background for this particular display will be determined by this drop down right here. And I can say nothing, which means it would just give me the overall coastlines of the world. Or I can say terrain, which is what I've got displayed right here. Or I can actually say, since I've got an E3D data set loaded, it'll give me a top-down view of that data set. And I'm just using repetitive textures there. Geotypical textures on that. So this is a pretty ugly looking view. This is an elevation contour map of the terrain, and I can set the colors that I want to use by going to the view and selecting my terrain display data set. And this lists all of the different color bands and their altitudes and what color I want to use to display that. That is only gets used if I'm drawing my background using the elevation data that I have loaded. I can also load any GeoTIFF image, and if I do that, if I had a GeoTIFF image, I could go to the Map Images window, and I could specify the GeoTIFF images. That would be a file that we don't actually store in the Flames database. You create that GeoTIFF image using whatever tool you want, and you can store it anywhere you want, and then you just put the path in there to it, and it'll show up And once you have GeoTIFF images, the images you have loaded will be here, and you can select those and let those be the background of your 2D view. There are several tool buttons across the top that are used to control the 2D view, and most of those tool buttons have a menu item equivalent. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of how these things work. With my left mouse, I can just click and drag and pan around. I can use the wheel on my scroll on my mouse to zoom. That's the most convenient way. If I get lost, I can just hit this reset button and it'll bring it back to make that as big as will fit in my current window. There are a number of things that I can do with this view. I can actually make it center on a given unit. If I can't find it, I can just click on it and it'll center on it. If I can't find it, I can go pick its name. If I want it to track that unit and I can pick a unit, and as the scenario moves, it'll keep that unit in the center of the window. Again, I've already looked at reset. There's a bunch of preferences that can be used to control what gets displayed in this window. So if I go to View and I go to View Preferences, I get this window right here. And this main View Preferences object right here has a bunch of options on it. These are built-in features of the view. So you can look at the documentation and see all the different types of things that you can turn on and turn off in the base background of the view. There's also view overlays. Now, these are not part of Flames. These are added. In fact, they came from the overlay DLL. You can get the source code to these and change them around. These overlays have their own graphical user interface. So if you write an overlay, you can put your own interface on it. And you can read about these individual overlays in the Flames documentation, which, by the way, most of the time you can get at by just selecting the help button here in the window. So I'm going to do that right now and show you. It just went right to the documentation on that overlay in the associated Flames document. So Flames is full of context-sensitive help. And then there's the units overlay, and that's the one that actually draws these 2D icons, and there are quite a few options associated with that. So there's an overview of the 2D view and some of the things you can do to control it and change the way it looks. It's an overview of the windows. In fact, I want to mention one other thing. Practically every window in Forge can be moved around just like the Forge status window, and you can dock them in different places on the left side or the right side. You can put them wherever you want. The Forge will remember the windows that you had opened if you exit normally, and when next time you start up Forge, it'll put those windows right back the way you had them, even if they're docked or undocked. And so in most cases, it'll restore all the windows. That's all I want to tell you about the 2D view and about windows in general in Forge. Thank you for watching this video, and thank you for using Flames.